HAZBIN Hotel is an indie animated show that was picked up by the American independent entertainment company A24 in the August of 2020 and is now distributed on the platform Amazon Prime. It originally was a much celebrated pilot which gained more than 100 million views, and this was when I first got interested in the franchise. Initially, I was a huge fan of the series, watching the spin-off Hell of a Boss and anxiously waiting for the new season to come out on Amazon. And when it finally did, I thought it was fine. Good even. I can't tell when I started disliking it, but it happened after finishing season 1. When I reflected on the quality, the story, and the character design, I realized that the series I had spent a long time looking up to wasn't really all that. I've basically watched the majority of the HAZBIN Hotel redesign videos, rewrite videos, and character critiques all over YouTube. It does sound like a case of YouTube gave me this idea, and watching all those videos has led to me thinking this now, but I really do think that HAZBIN has some deep internal flaws I want to address in this rewrite. Let's start with Charlie Morningstar. For a main character, Charlie's a little forgettable. From her looking pretty human-like and her round, inoffensive features, she's quite bland, especially compared to the main cast and even her dad. I've read in the wiki she was based around a porcelain doll in Satyr, which I'm personally not a big fan of, but it works decently in the show. I upped her inhuman attributes a little, giving her horizontal slitted eyes and sharp buck teeth, as well as making her hair sharper and wild, an inherited trait from her mother. Also, the amount of suits has to be studied. Charlie really doesn't stand out. I wanted to keep her professional and yet give her a little more than just a simple suit, so I changed her blazer into a more dress blazer type thing, which makes her silhouette a little more interesting. I love her shoes, but they're a bit empty, so I made them more high-heeled to make her even taller. She's 6 foot in show apparently, to make her a little more intimidating. She's definitely not though. Her personality is quite different in this version, with her being able to act very well in public when dealing with business, being taught how to in her childhood. However, she keeps a lot of in-show traits, such as breaking down in private, not understanding sinners fundamentally, and especially not taking others' opinions into account when she sets her mind to something. I was bothered by the lack of respect she gets from sinners in the show, as well as the overall lack of punishment, torture, etc. that Christians are so scared about, so I rejigged hell quite a bit to make it make sense. Coming in a later video. In this redesign, she looks enough like a sinner, maybe a powerful sinner, but a sinner nonetheless, and her claims of being the daughter of Lucifer make people think that she's either clout chasing or a weird Lucifer fangirl, which frustrates her to no end. Charlie also believes that all sinners who want to be redeemed can be redeemed, like in the show. She doesn't get along with her father, very similar to her daddy issues in the show, but up to 1,000-fold. She's maybe seen him at least 10 times in her life. She was mainly raised by imps and deadly sins in the royal household, but never saw him much at all. When she does call upon him for help with the hotel, he basically tells her to give up, and that no one can be redeemed, as he'd already be back in heaven if that were the case. I'll talk more about his complex in his section. Charlie doesn't get too discouraged with that, and does eventually get him to back her up eventually. Charlie has her mother's style. Her entire wardrobe is based around her mother's old pictures and even some of her mother's old clothes. Her room is covered in memorabilia, and she writes letters to her, though she doesn't remember what her mother's voice used to sound like. Here's this universe Lilith design, just for the record. Charlie resembles her quite a bit, especially her hair, which moves around almost like snakes. Now for relationships with the main cast, aside from her dear old father, her ex, like the show, is Leviathan von Eldritch, who she has very mixed feelings on. She may have had some on-off relationships between them now, but she considers Vaggie her one true love. She's very clingy, demands affection, but can and does have a life outside of her relationship, like in the show. However, contrary to the show, Vaggie has a life outside of Charlie. She's an avid gym goer, researches and practices fighting skills, and works as hired muscle due to her very self-reliant nature. Charlie could basically pay for anything. She's also different in the way that she can hide when she's angry and can stay calm in about every situation. So when she does get heated, something bad would happen. Her cool, calm demeanour is always threatened when Charlie gets emotional though, with her either becoming equally as emotional or extremely protective, both of which just escalate the situation. She's really the best to talk to during a mental episode for everyone but Charlie. Vaggie's backstory is a little different, in that she was created as an executioner angel, but had already become disillusioned by the time she arrived at Hell for her first extermination. She had ambitions to become a guardian angel when she returned to heaven, but couldn't bring herself to kill any sinners or hellborn when she was down there, resulting in being beat up by a squad and becoming a fallen angel. Exterminations work differently in this version, mainly through the fact that they kill everyone and it occurs every 10 years instead of 1, but becoming more and more often. She would meet Charlie a few years later, them both believing in helping the sinners reconnect and creating a supportive network for newcomers and sinners in bad situations. They work together in successful projects like the beer kitchen. They're both human. It makes perfect sense for them to not understand what is and isn't normal to consume. I didn't want to modify much of her design at all, since Vaggie actually does have one of my favourite designs in the show. I love her desaturated palette and cool features. However, her hair needed to be brushed up a little to differentiate from Charlie, and I had to give her more muscle. Vaggie already seems to have really small tapered legs, so I brought that even further with insect-like points, which give her a little more of a moth theme. I also changed up her outfit, as she doesn't like uniforms, associating them with her past, but feels loyal enough to Charlie to go without. I also wanted to give her a top that allows her access to her wings, and give her her broken halo, which just looks like a fancy choker. Finally, her hands are bandaged, which would make sense of all the fighting she does for a side job, but in fact is cover for hell rot, which angels get when they stay in hell too long. Her fingers are stained black, and when she's not wearing her boots, her legs are also stained black. She cut off her circulation with bandages to maybe slow the spread, but eventually she'll become more demonic as time passes, and potentially even die as the infection continues. Charlie tries to find a cure for this in later parts of the story. I made it so that Vaggie occasionally lied to Charlie about New Earth lingo from when she was alive, which as an audience gag would refer to some Gen Alpha humour. Charlie believed her without a doubt, of course, since they're very close. Vaggie isn't exposed as an ex-angel by Adam, but instead by Charlie following her one day as a result of her father telling her to. They break up until Charlie remembers her philosophy, and they make up, though not as quickly as in the show. Speaking of Lucifer, I designed him to look very different from the show, simplifying him by a lot. I don't have too much against the original design, but I do think that he's a little cluttered. With my design, I didn't actually remove any idea, just simplified them and moved them around. I wanted to make him feel imposing and dangerous, mainly by changing up his proportions. Twink, be gone! And also changing up his style. Long hair felt a little more biblical, and also the result of a long time with no changes to his lifestyle. I changed up his coat to look a smidge more ringmastery, though I'm not keeping with the theme. The base of said coat probably moves around a lot like wings, though he can sprout them from other parts of his body. I drew these sashes on him and gave his shirt some snake patterns, since I did want to keep snakes on him, but figured actual snakes would be annoying to draw over and over again. I also simplified the apples on his design, giving him this pop of red on his staff that just represents apples very abstractly. I really love his colours, so I made sure to use them throughout his design. However, I removed the stripes. I'm sorry, but they're just noise and I don't like them. As a nod to his previous association with heaven as the angel of light, he's constantly glowing, and his design is mostly white and gold, with pops of the colour that represents pride, red. And to address the elephant in the room, his eyes were removed as he initially fell, with the horns growing in as his eyes healed over. He doesn't even have need of eyes, as he is constantly aware of what happens in hell, all of the time. The biggest difference between show Lucifer and my Lucifer is that my Lucifer is hell. He powers all of hell like electricity, keeps the fires burning in the lower levels, keeping the rings turning to change the day-night cycle. He can change the layout of everything briefly, allowing him to move places to other places and reorganize, but can't go out against the initial design. He can't even move his own body, only appearing places as a solid mirage, capable of manipulating the world around him, but physically not being there. He's chained to his palace at the very, very, very bottom of hell. Another fact about his situation is that he created Hellrot, as his straight malevolence created an adverse effect on any angel. This wasn't something he did on purpose, and he honestly probably wouldn't want to make fallen angels succumb to it too, but his hatred of everything heaven and everything holy made him a little blind in his rage. He doesn't think that hell or earth is better than heaven though. He wants more than anything to return to heaven with his high status restored, or better yet, usurp God. He believes he can run earth and the realms much better than God ever did. This is just unfound pride and nothing, as hell is managed very poorly, and he really has nothing going for him particularly, which he hypocritically is also aware of and hates himself for. Okay, he did create the 7 deadly sins and the Ars Goetia, but they do fight a lot, and courts are terrible. More on that next time. In terms of personality, he's much like the show, almost the same in fact. He acts quite cheerful and dotes on his daughter when he actually joins her side, though for a little more evil reason. He wants her to inherit hell when he ascends again, effectively making her his one and only heir. He doesn't believe in redemption, or even just helping sinners, since he deems them more worthy of burning, for all he cares. But he pretends he does for Charlie. He's cautious of Vaggie, especially as he clocked her as an ex-angel as soon as he saw her, and her broken halo. Later on, he does warm up to her slightly, since they could talk about heaven together, but their flaws are not the same, and he's even insecure that her actions were a little more moral than his. Vivzie Pop did change Lucifer's story in HAZBIN. He was said to be the one to gift humanity with the gift of free will, and was banished to heaven as a result. In some Bible versions, Lucifer actually was just actively rebelling against God as soon as he got free will of his own, with a deadly cocktail of pride, envy of God and jealousy of humans leading to him being kicked out of heaven and into hell. In my version, it's much like the Bible, with him leading an uprising and falling. Only Lucifer was cast down, and it was really a test to see who God could use to make hell run. God wouldn't have an appearance in my version, like the show, just having his speaker. And I think that's all of their designs. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's my first proper video with script and assets and this avatar. I'll release a new video in the new year talking about Hierarchy, Alistair, and his lackeys. And better late than never, please like, share, and subscribe. I doubt saying that makes much of a difference, but yeah, you know. Okay, bye.